It is a badass Truth Bomb Tuesday, and we have something we want to tell you. If treating yourself like shit worked, why don't you have the results that you want by now? I mean, I don't know about any of you guys, but I know my inner critic and I have had some go arounds. And I know that the meaner she was, the less results I was getting. I'm curious to know if you guys had any issues with a super mean inner critic.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I don't like her. I don't like her, and I'm getting better at recognizing her. That's one of the things I think a lot of us, we don't realize that that's exactly what it is until, we're just awakened to that. But yeah, I would definitely say just the terrible thoughts about myself, or, my size, or, if I overate something or whatever, like when I sit and beat myself up and think terrible thoughts, it doesn't get me anywhere. It just kind of, the hole just gets a little deeper, sucks me in a little further. So I'm definitely learning to love myself. That's one of the things that I know my coach has talked to me about from day one, is just loving myself to health. That's what she says.
That is beautiful. I love that. What about you, Megan? Any run-ins with your inner critic?
Yeah, a lot of times prior to my recent weight loss, like when I would exercise and I couldn't do, I was like, come on, fatso, come on, lard, apple, come on, I would call myself other names than that, but just horrible names. I would say to myself, just like, you are fat and stupid and you can't do this. And it was horrible. Like, cause I'm just like, and I would just get frustrated. I wouldn't cry a little bit, but you just die a little bit inside when you see everyone else can do stuff. And because I overate and I overindulged and I decided to use food as a hobby, and or just, if one's good, two's better. And then you get to a point where it's like, well, hey, I want to work out, or I want to go, hiking, or whatever it is. And you go to do it and your body's like, oh, no, friend.
We ain't doing this right now.
Oh, and you do. And people are like, oh, don't be so hard on yourself. And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm living in this mess. So.
Yeah. What about you, Kelly? How's your inner critic? How's it going over there?
I don't know that I ever really sat down and thought about that so much. But looking back at it, so I was talking to a therapist not too long ago, and basically she said, if you could, because I beat myself up about things that happened in my 20s and going on to my 30s, and mistakes that were made and things like that, or relationships that I stayed in, should not have stayed in. And she said, if you could talk to that again, because I'm constantly beating myself up about, I should have done this and I should have did that, but I stayed here and I did this. She said, could for a moment, could you give that person 20-year-old some grace? She was doing the best she could at that time. And to me, that is one of the hardest things. So and what came out of that through all the years was fear of failure. So if I wanted to control I wanted to control everything if possible, because I'm so afraid to fail. And if I controlled it, then I'd make sure it wouldn't fail. Simple things, even once I had my divorce, simple things as paying, or I should say signing up for the internet, or, Spectrum or whatever, the TV thing. I was so afraid to make a decision because I was afraid of failure. So for me, competing, I knew that I could control every single rice grain that went into my system. If a rice grain fell in the car, I found it, because that was a control. I had to have it. And if I didn't, I'd be hungry. Rice is not going to make me hungry. It was a control thing. But the whole thing with food, now that I look back at it, and gosh, it really didn't even pick into my system right now until we start talking about it. It is a true control thing. And I used food over years of dieting continuously because I could control, and I was masking a lot of the problems I was having. I always used to blame a lot of that stuff. I need my divorce and competing. I blame my competing on the divorce and things that happened, but I really don't think, I think that was a result of what was. because I wanted control. Because I was so out of control in those early days. And I blame all the time in my head. I blame that 20-year-old. Maybe if I would have made better decisions, maybe if I would have made this decision.
Yeah.
Back at it now, I never stopped to even think about that. But boy, that's a lot. Oh, that's some deep-seated shit. Wow. Well, you know, maybe that little sign on the door that says you are not hungry, you are bored, stressed, or lonely. It may be a little bit deeper than that. And the fear of on that Friday phone call that I would fail when my boss would call, and that's what I would end in the pantry.
Yeah.
Had a little bit more to do with maybe the stress. But yes, I was stressed, but why was I stressed? I was stressed for the fear of failure because it's been a life of failures. One of the things I told Todd when I started the program 2.5 years ago, I wanted to lose 5 pounds. Big ass lie. I needed 25, but I didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
I didn't want to fail, and I didn't want him to fail. That was my friend. I didn't want him to be bad.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's not about the failure. It's about what we make it mean, right? Yeah. And that's where the inner critic comes in. And I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on when did that start? Because we are not born hating ourselves and we are not born criticizing, right? Like if you think of a brand new baby, they're not upset at the barf on their shirt or the snot hanging out their nose or the poo in their diaper. Like they know that they are worthy and they are beautiful and they deserve to have those little thighs squeezed and that little fat tummy tickled. And they know that they can just squawk when they need something and that they are worthy of attention. And every single one of us started that way. And I would love to hear your thoughts on like, how do you think we go so far away from that state of being from when we're born to just like beating the hell out of ourselves all the time?
I had a thought that it ties into that and also what Kelly was saying about control. You know, I think, you know, as young people, as we experience, you know, we get past the poo in our diaper and the, you know, what you described, and you start, you know, bumping into maybe displeasing someone, you know, like a parent or a teacher or something like that. And then as you get older, you know, you have the teenage things that happen. And I think we just learn that there is so much out of our control, and it, you know, and I really do think control is a thing. And even the inner critic in the talking to ourselves, we're actually trying to fit ourselves into a mold, you know, that really, we just aren't even meant to be there.
Amen.
I mean,
that mold was broken when we were born.
Right. And we think you know, and we all are in a different place with how much we want to please people and stuff. But for the most part, you know, most of us, unless we've come and hit a wall or we've, you know, dealt with it before, you know, most of us are trying to fit in and please people around us, keep our, you know, fam happy, our friends, you know, coworkers, things like that. But I do think that a lot of the trash talking ourselves and all of that does have with, you know, we think, I don't know why we think it, but we think we're going to control ourselves by telling ourselves, would you say, Meg, you fat, you fat piece of, you know, whatever, like that's going to make you stop being a fat, you know, I can do anything or whatever. So I just thought of that. I thought that's how we try to control things and get ourselves to do what we think we should or what others have imposed on us. But I don't think it works. I know it doesn't work. I don't think that's how God created us. I don't think that's how we're supposed to show up in the world either. Expecting to fit into whatever. I think we're supposed to be like a flower. I don't know how to explain it, but like it should be fresh. It should be alive. It should always be changing and growing, not fitting into a mold and a stamp. And so.
Amen. I could not have said that better myself. You know, I think that self-judgment comes when we try to fit into what other people think we should fit into. Right. And interestingly, even just this last week, my mom came to visit my new place. And I grew up on a ranch. I was born on a 1,500 acre ranch. Like my life has been wide open spaces. And right now we are super tiny in the middle of the city. You know, it's a quadplex place in a gated community. And my mom came in and she was like, oh, well, this place, I mean, it's cute, but being in the middle of the city just isn't you. Right. And had I been less secure in who I am, I would have taken that very personally, and it would have hurt me for a long time. And I would have been judging myself as not fitting in and not doing the right thing. And I would have just gone right down that rabbit hole. But the truth is that comment was based on her expectation, her values, her judgments. And I think that's exactly where we go wrong, is at some point we get some sort of authority figure or a peer that tells us, that shoulds on us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then we somehow internalize that voice and start shoulding on our own selves. Right. Megan, you've been doing a lot of like over there. Tell me more, friend.
Yeah. A lot of that, what Kelly said and what Shonda said definitely resonated. And I think I was trying to think back to where it happened. I want to say it was probably junior high, or I was chunky. I got a little chunky, but I went through like parents' divorces, stepmoms, just stuff. And you try to cope how you can, and then changing schools and stuff like that. And then you just think, well, if I look like this, I will fit in. If I do this, I'll fit in. And that was around 13. I've been on a diet since I've been 13. So it's just, and you shouldn't have to do that. You know, nowadays I just couldn't imagine. I just want to grab that little girl, you know, but
yeah.
And
well, go ahead.
Well, and I just know comments were made, nicknames and comments and stuff, and they stick in your head, even though families think they're being funny and it's cute, and, you know, it sticks. And, you know, then it comes to pass and it's hard.
Yeah. And I don't think we're given the skills to unstick it, right? Like we just at some point internalize this belief that the more we kick our own asses in our own heads, the more successful we're going to be. And the truth is the complete opposite, right? Because I'm sure that every single one of us is brilliant at tearing ourselves apart. There is no doubt that we know exactly what hurts, exactly what words to use, when to use them. And we are our own, like our words and our voice in our head can become our own worst weapon. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But what if we flipped that script? And one way that I think of flipping that script is if that person, if whatever I was going through, whatever I was judging myself for, if my child, right, they're sitting right here behind me, if one of those babies came to me and had the same problem that I was going through, I would never call them a fat ass or tell them that they were stupid, right? Like never would that cross my heart, because I love them so much. I want to support them in that moment. And that is how, in my head, we can start flipping the script a little bit, is if it were my best friend or my child, would I talk to them that way?
No.
Right. And to take that a step further, how would I talk to them? Right. And it's a stop, challenge, choose moment. Like, dear inner critic, stop. I know you think you're helping, and at one point your words did serve me, or you wouldn't exist. So thank you. Challenge, your words are not helping me anymore. Let me teach you how to talk to me better, because I love me and I'm going to teach you how to love me too. Ooh, right? And then help her choose how she's going to talk to you. Right? Like that is a retrainable moment, because really at some point that behavior and talking to ourselves that way in a moment of challenge becomes a habit, right? And at one point it probably did serve to motivate us, or we wouldn't be doing it. I mean, that's just the plain fact of it, right? We don't ever do anything that doesn't serve us in some capacity. However, at this point in our lives, friends, kicking my ass for something I did 20 years ago ain't helping. If it helped, I'd be really, really successful. I tell you what, if success were measured by personal ass kickings, dude, out the way, I'd be president by now.
Well, I think also, I mean, 20 years or however you said it, but like, I think the older I get, not that I'm trying to say I'm old, but it's like, I don't want my ass kicked. I like a little bit of pleasure and comfort, and, you know, and so like, I resist it. I'm like, oh, I don't like feeling bad about myself. So a lot of times because I want to avoid failure, as Kelly said, you know, I will just pull myself out of things. And I don't know that that's necessarily right. I think that's why it's super important for us to get healthy thinking, healthy, loving ourselves, just like you're saying, because otherwise we're going to miss out. And
Yeah.
dang.
Well, and it's also like, it's not about the
Yeah.
failure itself, right? It's about what we make it mean.
True.
And that again is your inner critic, right? Like, I failed, but really, did I? Like, did I learn? Did I
Right.
grow? Did I experience in a different way? Am I now empowered to do it differently, right? And Kelly, that's what's happening with your 20-year-old self, right? Like, she did the best she could with what she knew. There ain't no judgment there, right? Yeah, looking back, knowing what I know now, like, she fucked that up real good.
Yeah.
Well, and
But-
I even think about, and I never did until we brought this up, and tell you how you talk about tucking things and silencing them and shutting down, because I didn't want to open up that. That's a can of worms. That's a layer on that onion. They're ready to peel. But just made me think, at that same time, I had an eating disorder. So I spent many days in the bathroom. I would eat, and it would all come back up. And I never could figure out why. Looking back, I don't remember why. Why doesn't occur to me? But I did. And Shonda, you just said something, and I remember it was during nursing school. Also, it was a bad time in my family life. Dad drank, and I like to keep control. I keep everything like this. Mom worked 3 to 11 as a nurse, so I'd have the evenings and keep it all. Everything was dress by dress till I went to bed. And the bulimia was something that I could control. But I had a nursing instructor who told me that they were hiring at the local, fast food restaurant down the street. And she thought that was a better choice. My mother and sister, she also taught my mother and sister as nurses. And she used to say, your mother and sister can dance circles around you as a nurse. Do you know, still to this day, I get a sick feeling if I have to climb a tubing. I remember that. And now looking back at those things along that time, I bet some of that had to do with that whole fear of, now I'm going to screw up. I'm going to fail. I'm going to make a wrong decision.
Yeah.
Right. There really aren't wrong decisions. They're the decisions at that time. And some are going to be more optimal than others, but you don't know it till after that anyway. So giving her grace, it's taken a lot. And I've tried to work a little bit on forgiving her for some of the choices that she made, but it is still hard because that little voice still plays in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And, making this food is definitely, and I have to be really careful because I will quit to, if I feel like I'm not doing something I should be doing, or say something is going a little haywire in the world, bad mistake. I will pull 5 and 1 really quick.
Yeah.
I can control that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I follow a coach. Her name is Christine Hassler. She does a podcast called Over It and On With It. And I have learned so much from her around inner critic work. And, she talks about like how to reprogram that inner critic. Right. And one way is that stop, challenge, choose that we talked about, and teaching her new words. But another exercise that I did that I found really helpful was personifying her and becoming pen pals with her. And writing letters back and forth, like, hey, did you know that what you were doing is really hurting me? And when you talk to me that way, it just makes me want to go eat more, which makes you talk even louder. Did you know that? Did you realize that? And then write back as if you were her. And having that like flip-flop perspective actually helped her and I get along a whole lot better, because the truth is she was created because she was serving me at some point, and she just didn't get the memo that wasn't serving me anymore, and she needed to be on board with that. So that was one thing that was really, really helpful in terms of helping to reprogram your inner critic. And I've also been doing a lot of work with Dr. Alok Trivedi and his Aligned Performance. I'm in his Aligned Mastery program, and it started for me with a ticket to an inner wealth event, and it's a full day long seminar. And literally, it's about talking about the wealth that you have inside of you. And all of his work is designed to help you get back to truly loving yourself. and healing those traumas and getting rid of that voice in your head. And it has been game changing, right? And the more I love myself, I'm finding the more opportunities are showing up, the happier I am, the more I'm connecting with people. It's incredible what his work does. And so Megan, I know that you've been to one of those events, and I'm curious to know, in terms of like beating yourself up and that crappy inner critic, what did you kind of take away from that inner wealth seminar?
I realized a lot of things about myself. I got to go back to figure out, because you just let life get in. And through the exercises, I figured out like where my next path was going to go. Like, you get to identify stuff, you get to work through some stuff, and it helps you pull out stuff. I say stuff, it's traumas, just goals that you didn't know you wanted and had. It just was, I mean, that's when I realized that it was after, I was at 36-hour weekend we spent. I think it was to the Reclaim Your Life.
Oh yeah, they get really bad. Yeah, that one's incredible.
I went to that one too. And it just, I got done with that and I'm just like, I was exhausted, but I was free. It was just, when you start digging in, that really helped. So
yeah. And Shonda, you've touched on this before when you talk about living in your values, right? Like, your highest value is your family. There's no doubt about it. And when we are shoulded on by other people and we are judged for our authentic values, that creates a lot of internal conflict, right? And I think, Megan, like what both of those weekends, the Get Real and the Inner Wealth, have gifted me is permission to just be me and to not apologize for my highest values of being a mother, coaching and growing my business, and learning. Like, those are the three things that I value the most. And every decision I make is rooted in being a better mom for my children, because that is my highest value. And now that I have more understanding of that, and that like have literally been given permission to just live as me, my inner critic is a whole lot more quiet, right? Not only because she and I got on the same page by being pen pals and we had a little powwow with each other, but again, this work. And for those of you that are really, really struggling with this inner critic stuff and just beating the hell out of yourself, not getting anywhere, and probably making it worse for yourself, just know that there are 4 people on the screen right here who know what it feels like to be in those shoes and who are still working through how it goes, right? And we want nothing more than to support you in that, to partner with you in your health journey, to work on that healthy mindset. And as my personal gift to you, I would love to invite you to the next Inner Wealth. So whenever you are seeing this, like, I am committed to having eternal gift tickets for the rest of my life, because this work is so powerful. So if at any point you're hearing this, whether it's right now or 2 years from now, and you're like, what's this inner wealth thing? Hit me up. I got your back. And our number one desire for all of you is to be living a life happy around the things that matter the most to you. And what matters the most to Megan is not what matters the most to Kelly, is not what matters the most to Shonda, is probably not what matters the most to me. And guess what? It's okay. It's totally and completely okay to be authentic in your life and to want whatever it is that you want. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Was there anything else that you guys would like to add before we close up today? Did you want to say something about self-love?
I'm loving her lipstick.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Did you guys see how easy it was for her to accept that compliment?
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
You know, another part of that inner critic is being uncomfortable with accepting those compliments, right? Because we're not sure that we're worthy. So sometimes we're like, oh, this whole lipstick, right? Yeah. Awesome, Haley. We'll be done in a minute. This is a medical help thing? Medical help can wait. She ain't bleeding. She ain't dying. All right, you guys, you are amazing. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Truth Bomb Tuesday.